put it together, it's pretty much uniting two passion we like. Like we love music, we love riding bikes, and we just pack all that in one bus with all the craziest, like all our family pretty much. You ride all day, you listen to music show, and then you party. Boom.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Piaro, editor of Canadian Cycling Magazine. We just heard a member of the freestyle group The Rise describing their 2017 Partymaster Tour. We're going to hear more about the most recent edition of the Partymaster Tour when I speak with one of its organizers, Michelle Plonka. Social media editor Dan Walker, how are you doing?
Well, I've never felt more lame than after watching the Rise Partymaster Tour series.
I know, it's what I find fascinating about it is it's an endurance event. Mm-hmm. Even though these are freestyle mountain bikers, they've made up an endurance event.
Hey, you party, you ride, you party, you ride, rinse and repeat for weeks on end. It's tough.
That's almost a direct quote, yes.
Flanders this weekend, you watched that? I'm sure you were glued to the TV.
I watched the women's race, and then as soon as it was over, I switched to the men's race. But I did catch Hugo Uhl's attack over the Quaremont, and he won.
What a guy. Winning money for charity.
That's pretty cool. So I'm glad I caught that too.
Yeah, I know I got to give Flowbikes another plug, but I did really like how you could switch between the men's and the women's races this year. Mm-hmm. That was cool. I think that's the first time that's been done. Before, it was usually like you were hoping to catch a glimpse of the women's race during the men's race. So,
yeah, nice work there.
Doing it better than they used to be.
All right, what's going on today, Dan?
All right, we have Full Send, No Send.
Nice.
The streets were calling for it. We're bringing it back. We got some spicy topics from Tour de Flanders, and maybe some people call it a PSA about early season mountain biking.
Oh, interesting. I can't wait to debate. Finally, Coach Peter Glassford is back with Ask a Coach. If the roads are starting to look rideable where you are, you'll want to check this out. Peter has advice for getting off the trainer and getting outside. Glorious, glorious outside. But first, how do you ride all day and party big at night for 16 days? The Partymaster Tour brings together bikes and rock and roll. It's a mix that seems like one part Rad, the movie, the film Fubar, and maybe the Merry Pranksters. The group behind the tour is called The Rise. It's an 11-year-old outfit out of Montreal made up of freestyle riders. Michelle Plonka is a co-founder of the group and its CEO. In the winter of 2017 and spring of 2018, he and two others started planning the group's second summer Partymaster Tour. It ran for 16 days and had stops in Ontario and Quebec. Footage from that tour is currently being rolled out on YouTube. It features tricks, jumps, beer drinking, and headbanging. It really is a party. Recently, I spoke with Michelle to find out what the tour was like behind the scenes. What might surprise you is that things are not as crazy as they seem. So, Michelle, tell me about The Rise.
The Rise started 10 years ago as a collective. We had a website. We wanted to promote the East Coast freestyle riding scene. And slowly more people got involved, and it kind of grew into a bigger and bigger project, and we started gaining a worldwide audience. And 10 years later, we're a bike company.
And one of your bike company's activities is the Partymaster Tour. You've had two of them, one in summer of 2017 and one last summer in 2018. What was the inspiration for the Partymaster Tour?
Well, that's a long story, but we've always been fans of road trips and just riding different places on our bikes. So obviously mixing them both together sounds like a logical thing to do, right? And then we wanted to make something more special and more different, so we decided to add the music part to it. We were fortunate enough to have a few good friends that have music bands, and fitting everything inside one bus was like the ideal way of doing it. We weren't sure if it could work out, but we worked hard on it and we made it happen.
Now, one of those bands is Blue Cheese. What can you tell me about Blue Cheese?
Well, Blue Cheese is a band from Terrebonne, which is located right outside Montreal. And they have something very special going on. It's a three-man band, and the singer is mostly the drummer. So that alone makes it special. And there's just those guys are so simple, but their music is so much different from anything else we had heard. So having them on the tour was a perfect match for our crew of guys, you know.
How long does it take to plan the tour?
It would be hard to say exactly in hours or weeks, but we start thinking about the next tour around November, and then slowly the first thing to do is pick up the dates, which is the hardest, to make sure everybody can get time off work and all that. Then pick up the itinerary is also a complicated task. So I would say like the plan is pretty much defined around March.
The tour centers around a bus. That's how you guys get around. How many people at its max does this bus carry?
By law, we can have, I think, 21 people on the bus, which is a little too packed for what we do. So there's always between 16 and 20 people on the bus, and that's pretty comfortable to travel like that.
In episode 4, you guys had some bus trouble. This is in your 2018 tour. What exactly happened, and how serious was that?
Well, so we were driving out of Toronto, heading towards Joyride, and right before getting on the highway, we had stopped somewhere to get food, and Marshall was driving at this point, and he asked me if I heard this little noise that he couldn't tell what it was, neither if it was like dangerous or not. But in a bus like this, you know, there's so much activity going on, and it's a big diesel machine, so I tried to hear the noise. I didn't know which one he was talking about, right? And then just as soon as we got on the highway, one of our friends was following in a different car, so he passed us and he told us to stop right there, right now. So then we stopped, and it was like beginning of rush hour on the 401. So we walked out and we saw that the two of the rear wheels, which are bolted together, there was 4 out of 8 studs that had completely snapped, and the wheels were sideways, and the other studs were pretty messed up as well. So we got back on the bus. We told everyone to sit as much in the front as possible, and we slowly drove off the highway, stopped 2 other times to tighten up the studs. And luckily we made it in a residential area without anything else breaking, so that was a success.
Then you fixed the bus yourself. Now, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised if you were fixing bikes along the way, but you had the skills and the know-how to fix a bus?
Well, myself and Marshall, who we were the 2 drivers of the tour, we have, we're not extremely skilled in mechanics, but definitely more than the other guys on the tour, so we figured we have no choice but to go fix it. Marshall is pretty good with cars. I have some experience. My dad is a mechanic as well. So we looked it up online how to do it. It doesn't seem too complicated. Then I gave a call to my dad. He'd give me a few tips. And luckily at that point we were at Matt's mom's place. And Matt's stepdad lives there and he has like a lot of tools. So that definitely saved us because otherwise we didn't have enough tools to do this job. But yeah, we made a plan the night before on how to fix it there. He took some tools, went to buy some parts, rent a few tools. And we made it happen.
So the tour features a lot of driving. You guys are going to shows, but there's also lots and lots of riding, and that's the focus of much of the videos that you guys have been rolling out. What was your favorite riding session during the tour?
It's really hard to say because there's so many that are kind of different, so they're all awesome in their own way. But for my favorite session, I think it would be the one we had in Toronto, because it's not every day that we go out to ride and there's almost 50 people show up to ride with us. So riding with a big crew like this, it's definitely a highlight because there's so much energy and everybody is hyped on what everybody else does. And Toronto would be my favorite for sure.
The trip featured, riding and partying. But if you go hard with one of those disciplines, if you will, it'll affect the other. How did members of the Rise balance out these 2 activities that were so important to the trip?
Well, they're pretty easy to balance because some people see it from the outside and they think it's just like everybody's getting drunk and that's it. But, the guys that come on the tour and that we invite on the tour, and the point of the tour is to ride bikes, So in everybody's mind, it's clear that their priority is riding bikes. So if there's a party, sometimes, it gets agitated, but it's not like crazy drinking so you can't move the next day, There is some that it goes harder than others because the next day is more chilled. But the guys know in advance what riding happens when on the tour, and it's pretty easy to make it work.
You guys had a yoga session at the start of episode 6, I believe. Yoga's not very rock and roll, though, is it?
Well, it depends how you see rock and roll, because for us, rock and roll is just like freedom, doing what you want the way you want. And if yoga can help you get your day going better and ride better, then yoga is rock and roll in my books.
You make a good point with the freedom element, because you guys definitely have that vibe of freedom and spontaneity. But at the same time, this is you put a lot of planning into this tour. You had to be at certain places at certain times. How did you balance out the spontaneity versus the logistics and the nuts and bolts of that?
Well, because this was already our second tour, and we learned a lot from the first one. The first tour we did was a little shorter, I think 3 days shorter. And we had so much packed in there that the itinerary was so tight. We figured it was too hard and didn't make sense because, as you said, there was not enough room for spontaneity. So in the second edition, we chose to focus our bigger events on the weekends. So we left for 16 days, which gave us 3 weekends and 2 weeks, right? So we planned our bigger events on the weekends, and during the weeks we made a very more chilled out itinerary where we knew where we would go, but maybe not exactly like what we would do by the minute. And this gave room for a lot of improvisation and more relaxing days and different activities we could explore where we didn't have to follow a strict itinerary.
I think it was one of your days off was by a lake, and you actually planned this, and I think it was you who brought a specific lake jump bike. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me more about that bike.
Well, because jumping in a lake with an ordinary bicycle that you ride every day obviously is not the best idea, right? And since our bikes are all pretty similar because we all ride the Partymaster frame, we have a few of the old frames here. So before the trip, I gathered a bunch of old bike parts I have around, and I just built a decent bike with it. And, to jump in the lake is perfect. Your real bike doesn't get damaged. And yeah, we just put some floating things on the handlebars and the top tube, and you're good to go.
So it had flotation, so it wouldn't sink to the bottom and you could retrieve it easier?
Yeah, well, actually, a mountain bike like this, even if you throw it in the water, it won't sink because there's enough air in just the tires. I'm not sure for a road bike, but for the bigger tires, it works. But we always put some on the handlebars and on the top tube because they act as a protection at the same time, right? And then the bike comes up, handlebars first, and we throw a rope in the water with like a ring on it, so we can bring the bike back easily.
And I understand you have a tour planned for this summer, for 2019.
Yes.
Is there anything you can tell me about that tour yet?
It's going to be from July 19th to August 3rd, I believe. And all the events aren't 100% yet, but I can tell you it's going to happen again, and it's going to be wild.
Nice. And it'll be focusing again in Ontario and Quebec?
Most likely Quebec. We might go to Ontario as well, but we tried to explore more of Quebec, which is more from where most of the guys are.
Mm-hmm.
And, the 2 previous tours, we kind of did the same route because it was like a winning formula, but now we want to do something a little different. Because if we do all the same stops every year, it kind of makes no sense in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, in Quebec, we're kind of limited with good street riding options. So we will figure something out. But yeah, the tour will happen for sure, and it's going to be nice.
Right on. Well, we look forward to seeing that and seeing some of the more rad riding you guys are doing and hearing some of the tunes. Michel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Michel Planca is a co-founder and CEO of The Rise, a group of freestyle riders based mostly out of Montreal. Planca is also one of the organizers of the Partymaster Tour series.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, 5 minutes now.
Welcome to the Thunderdome, Matthew. It's full send, no send.
2 ideas enter, 1 leaves.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Sebastian Langeveld, brake checks on Greg Van Avermaet, full send, no send on those roller derby tactics.
I mean, yeah, both you and I agree that full send on that awesome brake check. That was my favorite move of the race of Tour of Flanders. Just like, yeah, Bettiol's away. There's that, natural drama. Can he stay away? Blah, blah, blah. Not to undermine what he just did, but just that move on the bottom of the Paterberg. And then it looked like he raised the ire of one of the other riders.
For sure. But you know what? It's their fault. They knew. What were they thinking he's going to do there? What, like get the KOM on Strava? Probably not. They should have gone into the corner first, chased them on their own.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a super move. Great teamwork by EF throughout that race.
It is cool to see some direct teamwork like that. There's no subtlety to what Lagerveld was doing.
No.
Like, he was just out there helping his guy.
That's right.
All right, moving on.
Next.
Earlier in the week, Oliver Nason, he was iffy if he was going to start.
Oh, that's right. What was
Why
keeping
was
him
that?
back?
Oh, it was a case of the champagne bronchitis.
Now, this is news to me. I'm familiar with champagne giving me a headache rather quickly, but bronchitis.
Now, we're not doctors, but we do play one on a podcast.
When we have to.
I'm pretty sure you can't get bronchitis from grapes.
Well, doctor, I might have to disagree, and here's my thinking on this one. Now, you're gonna have to go with me on this. So I was in this group ride a few years ago. It was late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
There were colds. People had colds. And a rider in front of me should have done a proper snot rocket to the side. Instead, he atomized his snot. And I rode through a cloud of mucus. What does this have to do with champagne, you might be asking?
I am.
Okay. The spray of champagne, it's maybe not as fine as this.
You think it was a carrier for the germs in the
It could
air?
have carried germs. It could have just gotten deep into his lungs if he was on the podium getting sprayed. I think, as my professional opinion, as a completely unqualified medical professional, that maybe it was legit. However, he recovered pretty well.
You don't think it was maybe that he's in really great shape and at his lowest weight all year that he's going to be at, and that's probably affecting his immune system?
That too. Champagne didn't help.
Fact. Okay. We're moving on.
Glad we settled that.
The weather's super variable this time of year.
Yes.
You might be tempted to go into the trails for some shelter. Mountain biking might seem like a good idea, but trail conditions are variable right now, and in much of Canada, east of British Columbia,
Even parts of
BC, the trail systems are super vulnerable. Full send, no send on early season mountain biking, Matthew.
How frozen are the trails?
They're not staying frozen at this time of year, are they?
If I go early in the morning and it's cold by the time I
Probably
leave?
not by the time you're getting out.
What's the soil composition?
Clay.
Oh, no send, I guess.
No. So
but I'm so itching to get out.
I know. It's a bit of a PSA. Trails are looking fun. Road conditions are iffy. Traffic's bad. But stay off those trails. You don't want to create ruts. More work for the trail builders.
Yes. No, respect your geology. Respect the soil composition in your local area. Respect the work that trail builders have done.
You know when you said in geology class, when am I ever going to use this knowledge? This was that time.
You had geology class?
No, but I'm sure somebody did. And they were like, why am I here?
How are we doing for time? We have a minute.
We have a minute. We've never had this much time.
We have like overtime.
Okay. Mountain bikes, or not mountain bikes, e-mountain bikes per se.
Oh, yes.
The UCI and the Moto federations are fighting over who gets them. Full send, no send. This belongs to the motorbikes.
Really? Is
Yes.
that how you feel about it?
It's a bike with a motor.
What about pedal assist?
Is it not still a bicycle with a motor?
Okay, now you're getting all semantic-y. But what I think, if you're pedaling to move the object, it's a bike. We have like the Gran Fondo Whistler. They have a special e-bike category because you're pedaling a bike.
I'm cool with John and Joe and Sarah and Sally pedaling up for their e-bikes, up Whistler with their e-bikes, but world champs?
Maybe the UCI could get world e-bike champs.
No, motorbike. Keep it to the motos.
No, disagree. It's a bike. You're pedaling. I'm working it. When time's up, but I'm still trying to make my point. Wow, we're going to have to come up with more topics next time. We just plowed through those ones. Has spring arrived where you are? I hope if the roads aren't clear, there's at least some progress to get you excited. Some signs that you'll be riding outside soon. But before you take off that trainer tire and put on an outdoor tread, it should probably be something durable now that I think of it, because the roads have lots of post-winter crud littering them. Before you do that, have a listen to Coach Peter Glassford. He has some great tips on the art of riding well in the spring. I've been riding my trainer throughout the winter. Now that the roads are clear-ish, I can head out. It's that simple, right? Right, Peter? I can just go outside? There's no problem with training inside than outside, or is there a transition period here, Peter?
I think there's definitely a bit of an art to riding well in the spring, assuming you're in an area, as most Canadians certainly are, where that spring line is not, it's fuzzy, right? That March, April, sometimes early May is fuzzy, right? We could certainly have snow, and have had snow into May, if not late, and if not later. I don't want to. Some of the northern areas probably are laughing, but there's certainly that transition, right, where you're very used to that regimented indoors training, which is great, and we're all fit and hopefully been doing some cross training and strength to augment that. But at some point we got to get outside, right? Because the races are coming, the group rides are coming. So for most of us, we really, really want to get outside, and it's good to remind ourselves why we do all this. But we have to be careful that we don't just throw that trainer into the basement and never talk to it again until the winter comes. Because there is the weather is going to be variable, right? So I think things we want to be prepared for is riding outside, maybe having a winterish bike, a crappy bike we can ride on. And then also the equipment. So like full fenders are super performance enhancing for, you're just going to be able to ride when the roads are wet and when it's raining or sleeting. So that's going to be a huge help. And then just clothes are definitely going to be helpful. And then the other piece that I find, like if we have the trainer still set up, then you can certainly do, especially on the weekends, I find clients doing this more often. They're going to go out, maybe ride till they get cold. So 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever. And they can come back in and jump on the trainer for another 30 to 60, whatever minutes to sort of get those legs moving for a longer period. So hopefully that's a few ideas as far as how to transition.
Mm-hmm. I like your point about how it's not an either or kind of scenario throughout spring, like because the roads aren't just one day magically clear for you. You sort of ease your way onto the roads in terms of your distance and also how clear these roads are for you. So yeah, just having the trainer there seems to make a lot of sense. Also, I liked how you said fenders are performance enhancing. I can just imagine some people going, "Are you kidding me? They erase all my aero gains on my aero road bike." But yeah, sometimes I guess comfort trumps aerodynamics.
Well, not even comfort. Like it's the difference between riding for an hour miserably and versus like 2 or 3 hours, probably miserably by the end. But it can honestly be the difference, because if it's at around freezing and you get soaked, like your whole back of your legs, your butt, and then your feet are soaked, like it's over, like the time's ticking, right? So yeah, huge. Like I wish I knew about them when I was a younger rider, when I was doing huge hours through like October, November, December, and then into the spring. Like it's a no brainer for sure.
Yes. It's amazing how that chamois acts like a sponge. Just a fantastic sponge.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yes, for sure.
All right. So there's equipment, which is important for spring. That's a good consideration, and clothing. And what are other things that we might want to consider with our early season rides?
Well, I think we sort of touched on this, but the other thing is like we've been very structured, hopefully, in our training, right? So, I'll have my clients maybe doing 2 interval sessions, very focused, and then the rest, maybe they jump into like a easier, online sort of Zwifting type ride. Maybe they do a little more structured endurance ride, maybe again, some strength training stuff. But when we go outside, the trick when the weather is sort of crummy, the mountain bike trails certainly aren't open. It's a little sketchy to be doing any sort of intensity even on the road, right? Like you could hit ice or, the water on the roads, and, cars are sort of not used to you being there. So the other important thing I think is that we keep a lot of that intensity, again, unless there's like an amazing weather pattern or you have a great road. A lot of that intensity is going to remain on the trainer, And then a lot of your endurance time can be outside. So a classic would be, you know, you have your Saturday intervals, you do them on the trainer, takes 45 minutes, whatever. Quick transition like a triathlete, right out onto the road and maybe roll another 2 hours, right? And so that can be a super beneficial session early in the season. But it keeps that quality really high. It makes it so that like you're going to be bundled up outside, right? So it's just really sort of sketchy and uncomfortable to do intervals when you're all bundled up with fenders and the weather's crappy. So that would be another sort of performance hack, I guess.
That's a great hack, and it's one that I should really employ. That's a good one. Peter, thank you very much for these tips, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you, Matt.
Peter Glassford is a professional coach and head of Smart Athlete Coaching Services. Send in your Ask a Coach questions for Peter to podcast@cyclingmagazine.ca. And that's the episode. It's put together by me, Matthew Piero, and Dan Walker. And we had help from Terry McCall and Philippe Tremblay. It's produced by Adam Killick. He also composed the music.
If you want more of what we're doing, check us out at cyclingmagazine.ca. Now, if you want to subscribe and download, you can find us on podcast catcher you're using to listen to this very podcast. And then check us out on social media. On Instagram, we're at Cycling Magazine. On Twitter, at Cycling Magazine as well. And on Facebook, at Cycling Mag.
I can't believe you have all those memorized. That's awesome. Special thanks to the Ontario Media Development Corporation for its support. Send us your ideas for full send, no send to podcast@cyclingmagazine.ca. Also, you can send us an Ask a Coach question, and Peter Glassford will help you out with that. That's also at podcast@cyclingmagazine.ca. Dan, who should listeners tell about our podcast?
Well, when they're out helping their local trail builders this spring,
Oh, yes.
turn to your right, turn to your left. That's who you should tell.
Let them know.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling chatty as you're working on the trails, maybe stick in some earbuds and listen to our podcast. And then, what should you do?
Rate, subscribe,
Yeah.
and leave a nice comment.
Nice comment.
And only if it's 5 stars, and only if there's something nice.
Please do. That helps us out a lot. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you later.